Wig-wearing rulers and golden tombs? Let's unravel the mystery of the mighty pharaohs, Egypt's royal leaders who ruled with power, pageantry, and maybe just a hint of eyeliner. I am Professor Punzworth, and welcome back to The Curious Professors, where history doesn't just walk like an Egyptian. It dances through time with questions, curiosity, and a few groan-worthy puns. Today, we're traveling back thousands of years to meet the pharaohs, the kings, queens, god figures, and fashion icons of ancient Egypt. So grab your crown and let's dig in. Let's start with the basics. What even is a pharaoh? Well, the word pharaoh comes from an old Egyptian phrase that meant great house, as in the royal palace itself. Eventually, the name became attached to the person living inside that big house, the ruler of Egypt, like a king or queen, but with way more bling. Pharaohs weren't just rulers, they were believed to be gods in human form, specifically the child of Ra, the sun god. Talk about being born into a bright career. This made the pharaoh both a political and religious leader. He, or sometimes she, had total control over laws, armies, temples, even the yearly flooding of the Nile. So being pharaoh was no walk in the desert. Sure, you got fancy clothes, palaces, and a pyramid with your name on it, but you also had to keep the whole country running. And speaking of pyramids, we'll save those for another time. Today, we're focusing on the rulers themselves, who they were, how they governed, and what made them so powerful. Let's travel back to the very first pharaoh, Nama, also known as Menes. He's credited with uniting Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE. Before that, Egypt was two separate regions with their own rulers. Nama wore both crowns, the red one for Lower Egypt and the white one for Upper Egypt, to symbolize unity. And you know what they say, 2 heads are better than one, but 2 crowns? Now that's fashion-forward and politically savvy. Pharaohs had many symbols of power, crooks and flails for leadership and farming, headdresses with cobras for protection, and false beards, even for queens. Why the fake beard? Because it was a symbol of divine kingship. If you were pretending to be a god, you might as well dress like one. One of the most famous queens who ruled as a pharaoh was Hatshepsut. She wore a beard, ruled for over 20 years, and built incredible temples still standing today. She even had statues made of herself with a strong jawline and muscular arms to make sure everyone knew she was no ordinary queen. Some pharaohs were warriors. Thutmose III led 17 military campaigns and was called the Napoleon of Egypt, though he definitely beat Napoleon to the punch by 3,000 years. Others were builders. Amenhotep III built huge statues and temples, while Ramses II constructed so many monuments. He basically turned Egypt into his personal art gallery. Ramses II ruled for 66 years. That's longer than some empires lasted. He signed one of the world's first peace treaties after battling the Hittites. But not all pharaohs were adults. Tutankhamun, or King Tut, became pharaoh when he was just 9 years old. That's younger than most kids who still forget to clean their rooms. Sadly, he died young too, but his tomb became one of the most famous archaeological discoveries ever. We'll explore more about tombs and treasures in a future episode. Pharaohs ruled from great cities like Memphis and Thebes. They lived in luxury, but their job was more than just lounging around and waving at parades. They oversaw taxes, armies, building projects, religious ceremonies, and festivals. Their decisions could affect the entire kingdom, from farmers to nobles to priests. Whew, that's a lot of power packed into one person, and with power comes, well, lots of people trying to get close to it. The pharaoh had a whole team of officials to help run the government, including a vizier, who was kind of like a prime minister, and other scribes and advisors. The vizier made sure taxes were collected, laws were followed, and royal orders were carried out. They were the pharaoh's right-hand man, and sometimes left-hand too. But don't worry, we'll get to all the behind-the-scenes government stuff in a future episode. Right now, we're still on the throne with the pharaoh. Pharaohs claimed their power came from the gods, but they still had to work hard to keep that power. And trust me, royal drama was not in short supply. One way pharaohs stayed in control was by tying their rule to religion. They built massive temples and held ceremonies to prove the gods supported them. Temples weren't just places of worship, they were power centers, storehouses, schools, and even banks. Pharaohs used them to display their greatness and their divine connections. A temple to Amun? Check. A golden statue of yourself inside it? Double check. That's how you remind people you're both king and god-in-chief. Another key tool of power: art and writing. Pharaohs ordered carvings that showed them defeating enemies, feeding the poor, or shaking hands with the gods. Did it all really happen that way? Well, let's just say ancient Egyptian art wasn't big on realism. It was more like royal advertising. Every statue, painting, and scroll told the same story. I'm strong, I'm wise, the gods love me, and please don't question my leadership. But even pharaohs had enemies. From rival nobles to foreign invaders, they had to be ready for rebellions, plots, and palace power struggles. One tricky part? Succession. When a pharaoh died, the throne usually passed to a son. But what if there were multiple sons, or no sons at all? That's when things got messy. Brothers, nephews, generals, even wives could try to take the throne. Cue the ancient Egyptian soap opera music. Some pharaohs claimed they were chosen by the gods. Others erased their rivals from history by literally chiseling their names off monuments. One pharaoh, Akhenaten, tried to change the whole religion, banning Egypt's many gods and declaring there was only one, Aten, the sun disk. It was a radical move and not very popular. After he died, his statues were smashed, and Egypt returned to its old gods faster than you can say Ra's revenge. His son, that was Tutankhamun. Yes, that Tutankhamun, who restored the traditional religion and probably muttered, "Thanks a lot, Dad," while doing it. Sometimes military leaders seized power and crowned themselves pharaoh. Other times, foreign rulers invaded and claimed the title. Egyptian history has its fair share of plot twists. But even when the ruler changed, the image of the pharaoh stayed strong, powerful, divine. One thing that helped hold it all together? Ma'at. That's the ancient Egyptian idea of truth, order, balance, and justice, a concept every pharaoh was supposed to protect. Keeping Ma'at meant making fair laws, feeding the people, honoring the gods, and stopping chaos. Basically, don't let the kingdom fall apart on your watch. If a pharaoh failed at this sacred duty, they didn't just lose popularity. They risked upsetting the balance of the universe. No pressure, right? Of course, not all pharaohs lived up to the hype. Some were great rulers, others were less great. But all of them left a mark on Egypt, in stone, in stories, and in the sands of time. Pharaohs didn't just shape politics, they shaped the entire culture. Their ideas influenced fashion, architecture, language, and even how people decorated their walls. Royal style was a big deal. Pharaohs wore linen robes, golden collars, and headdresses called nemes, those striped cloth wraps you see in all the statues. And don't forget the eyeliner. Both men and women wore black coal around their eyes, part fashion, part sunblock, part bug repellent. Talk about multitasking makeup. The pharaoh's image was everywhere, carved into temples, painted on tomb walls, stamped onto rings, coins, and amulets. It was ancient Egypt's version of royal branding. And like any good brand, consistency mattered. Pharaohs were always drawn the same way: tall, powerful, serene, and holding the right royal symbols in just the right poses. Even the colors were symbolic. Red could mean power, green meant growth. Blue was for the gods, and gold, well, gold was just pure divine fabulousness. Some pharaohs went even further, building massive statues of themselves that could be seen for miles. Hey, in case you forgot who's in charge, here's a 60-foot reminder. But pharaohs weren't just symbols. They played real roles in daily life, setting taxes, organizing festivals, commanding armies, and making offerings to the gods. Many festivals celebrated the pharaoh's birthday, coronation, or connection to the gods. People danced, feasted, and honored their ruler with songs, gifts, and tasty offerings. And when the pharaoh appeared in public, usually in a grand procession or ceremony, it was a big event. Crowds would gather just to catch a glimpse. Imagine the ancient version of a royal parade. Music, priests, guards, incense, flowers, and the pharaoh riding by in a golden boat or chariot. Some rulers were deeply loved and admired, others not so much. But even the unpopular ones got the full royal treatment while they reigned. Pharaohs also shaped how people thought about gender and power. While most were men, Egypt was unusual in allowing women, like Hatshepsut and Cleopatra, to rule as full pharaohs. To do that, they often took on male titles, wore male clothing, and even had themselves shown with male features in art and statues. But their brains, pure brilliance. These queens ruled with skill, strength, and plenty of political savvy, proving that leadership had nothing to do with beards. One thing all pharaohs shared, they planned for their afterlife early, really early, because in Egypt, death wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of the next adventure. That meant commissioning tombs, gathering treasures, hiring artists, and getting mummified, all to ensure a smooth journey to the afterlife. Pharaohs believed their souls would travel through the underworld, face judgment, and, if all went well, live forever among the gods. So yeah, being pharaoh came with a lot of perks, but also a lot of pressure, both in this life and the next. So what's the legacy of the pharaohs? Why are we still talking about these ancient rulers thousands of years later? Well, for starters, they left behind some of the most jaw-dropping monuments in the world. Pyramids, temples, tombs, obelisks, the works. Even today, travelers from around the globe visit Egypt just to marvel at these wonders and say, "Whoa, how did they build this without cranes or bulldozers?" Their legacy also lives in the art, stories, jewelry, and hieroglyphs they commissioned, giant murals and messages carved in stone for the ages. Thanks to archaeologists, we are still discovering tombs, statues, and scrolls that teach us more about who these rulers were and how they wanted to be remembered. When King Tut's tomb was found in 1922, it sparked global Egyptomania. Suddenly, everyone wanted to see mummies, sarcophagi, and golden masks. And while many tombs were robbed in ancient times, some treasures survived. They give us priceless clues about pharaohs' beliefs, diets, hobbies, even their sock size. Okay, maybe not that last one. Modern scientists also study mummies with X-rays and DNA to learn about ancient health, family trees, and royal drama that would make a soap opera jealous. But beyond the gold and gossip, there's a deeper legacy. The idea that leadership carries both privilege and responsibility. Pharaohs were expected to care for their people, protect justice, and keep harmony, all while honoring the gods and building a fabulous statue or two. And now, let's review everything it takes to be a pharaoh. That's right, it's time for your official Build a Pharaoh checklist. Step 1. Divine birthright. People have to believe you're connected to the gods, or at least look amazing in gold eyeliner. Step 2. Royal symbols. You'll need a crown, crook, flail, fancy headdress, and probably a fake beard, even if you're 9 years old. Step 3. Ruling skills. Make laws, collect taxes, command the army, host big festivals, and keep the Nile floods and your people flowing smoothly. Step 4. Massive monuments, statues, temples, tombs. The more, the better. How else will people remember you 3,000 years later? Step 5. Prepare for the afterlife. Design your tomb, stash your treasures, and get ready to face the gods. Bonus points for elaborate spells and awesome wall art. And last but not least, leave a legacy. Whether it's justice, architecture, peace, or a whole museum full of your stuff, make your mark. Whew, being a pharaoh was no small feat. It took charisma, power, planning, and probably a really good royal calendar. But their story is still with us, carved in stone, buried in tombs, and living in our imaginations. All right, Pharaoh fans, it's time to test your royal knowledge with a quick quiz. Let's see how much you remember about Egypt's rulers. Question 1. What did the word pharaoh originally mean in ancient Egypt? It meant great house, originally referring to the royal palace itself. Over time, it came to mean the person who lived inside and ruled the land. Question 2. Which pharaoh ruled for more than 60 years and built so many monuments he practically turned Egypt into a selfie museum? That was Ramses II, also called Ramses the Great. He ruled for decades, fought battles, signed treaties, and carved his name everywhere. Question 3. What concept were pharaohs expected to protect, representing truth, justice, order, and harmony? It was called Ma'at. Pharaohs were seen as guardians of balance, keeping chaos away and making sure the kingdom stayed peaceful and fair. Question 4. How old was King Tutankhamun when he became Pharaoh of Egypt? Just 9 years old. That's younger than most kids who still need help packing their lunch. And he was running an entire kingdom. Final question. Why did some female pharaohs have themselves shown with beards in art and statues? Because the false beard was a symbol of royal power and divine authority. Wearing one helped them be seen as true pharaohs, no matter their gender. Nicely done, brainy builders of knowledge. If you aced that quiz, you deserve a throne of your own, or at least a golden juice box. Here's your classroom discussion question. If you could invent your own pharaoh name, royal symbols, and leadership style, what kind of ruler would you be, and why? Would you be a peaceful poet, a mighty general, a clever inventor, or a party-planning parade master? Let us know in the comments. We can't wait to hear your ideas. And don't forget, we've only just begun our journey through ancient Egypt. There's so much more to uncover, from writing and tombs to beliefs and inventions. Subscribe to The Curious Professor so you never miss a single hieroglyphic-packed adventure. We've got big questions, fun facts, and history that actually sticks. Until next time, I'm Professor Punzworth reminding you, in ancient Egypt, rulers wore crowns, built pyramids, and planned for eternity. But today, you rule with curiosity.